I'm Dan Drake. This is Front Up on Geno TV and Channel 99. Back with us is an old friend, Tom Rafter, the airport manager. Hey,
how are
Tom,
you, Dan?
how are you?
Good.
We got a few things to talk about.
Sure.
I think one of the things that's right in the front of people's minds is the restaurant. What's happening with the restaurant?
Well, we're moving forward with the award to Crosswinds. They put in a successful bid and signed their lease.
They are the prior operator.
They were the prior operator, and we're glad to have them back and work with them again. They delivered a great product, reasonable prices, and have a tremendous following. So we can't wait to get them back in. We're hoping to have them up and running by May 1st.
Why not till then?
Well, there's going to be a transition. They're in the process of moving things in. They have to go through, finalizing some permits, putting back the bar, that type of thing, because we had some renovations that we were working on.
And they're also getting new equipment, are they not?
They will be getting new equipment over a period of time. The floor is new. We also will begin construction shortly on a vestibule. The entranceway from the outside will be enclosed.
From the sidewalk, not from the patio.
Right, from the street side, so that during the winter, it won't be as cold and things like that. So did a number of improvements, things like that.
And everybody's enthusiastic.
We can't wait. We're hoping that, there's a possibility they may be able to get started before May 1st, but we're making it official May 1st. So again, looking forward to working with them and hopefully do some promotional things with regard to pilots and others, and invite people in. So,
what are we doing to put people in the seats at the airport?
Well,
at the restaurant.
There's a lot more seats coming into the airport this summer. JetBlue is adding at least one more daily flight, possibly two. American is going to be adding Charlotte service on Saturdays in addition to their LaGuardia and Washington National service. Delta is going to be increasing the size of their aircraft and focusing on LaGuardia. And United is going to be extending their season into the fall, as well as changing over to jet service. We've had expression of interest from another carrier to provide jet service to White Plains, and we're working with them to see if that can come to fruition. And I met with the owner of Island Shuttle, who is he just received his operating certificate, looking to provide flights between Nantucket, Hyannis, and New Bedford. And they're hoping to get started before the Daffodil Weekend. So we have a lot of activity we're anticipating for this summer.
Which is good news on almost all fronts.
It is, and we've been working hard for a long time to try to convince some of these airlines to expand their service. We've shown them what JetBlue has done in the shoulder seasons, and it's come to fruition with United. American was a bit of a surprise to Charlotte, but that's welcome service. It's a major hub for them, so it'll capture all of the South and Southwest.
It's interesting. I've mentioned that to more than a handful of people whose eyebrows have gone up, and they said, "Oh, that's great."
Yeah.
So I think there are people who are interested in
absolutely, and they know their business, so we're hoping they're very successful with it.
Put some strain on the terminal, doesn't it?
It sure does, and we are moving forward with a project to expand the hold room. For those who've experienced before, it can get quite crowded during peak time in the summer there. So we've put out the bid, and we had to reject, but we're going to be reissuing a bid for a hold room expansion. Essentially, it's a structured awning like you'd see at many of the restaurants on the island, and that will accommodate about another 125 passengers, and we'll be moving one, possibly two of the airlines out into that area. So we're doing that. We're reallocating counters. We're moving back wall signs. We're adding podiums into the hold room. And the very good news, too, is the public address system is currently being installed as we speak. They're moving forward with that, and that's been a long time coming.
It was supposed to have been last year, right?
Well, yeah, it's been on our list since I got here 5 or 6 years ago, so it's going to be a welcome change and should be a very big enhancement to the terminal. So.
Is there any hope at all at this point of expanding year-round service? Other than perhaps Island Shuttle?
Well, Island Shuttle I think will be a major positive. I think the other major carriers such as JetBlue certainly are keeping their eye on it, but it's a very difficult market in the winter with the size aircraft that they have. So I do think Island Shuttle will be a tremendous benefit in that regard. As you know, we have Cape Air and Retrix still doing well and providing us great access. So It's going to be a slow process, again, just because of the size of the population in the winter and propensity for travel, that type of thing. So,
Providence. What about where's Providence?
Providence is something that I'm always trying to get the airlines to serve. It's a very difficult market, from what I understand. The feedback we're getting is it's a very expensive market to operate in for the airlines.
Because of the costs in Providence?
Because of the costs in Providence, yes. But we would love to see it, because Providence has expanded service tremendously in the past year with international low-fare carriers and domestic low-fare carriers too. So we'd like to see that, but it's a challenging, if you will, point to get to sometimes. So, but we're not ruling it out. That's for sure.
Interesting. The change for the hold room. I mean, that basically is there going to be how many flights on the busiest days? 9?
Oh, JetBlue alone will have almost 9 flights a day. There's going to be upwards of maybe almost 15 flights a day on peak days. And again, with some larger equipment on some of those too. So it was a push before, and now it's going to be even more challenging. So,
but you found another parking space, didn't you, for a big plane?
We did. We had our engineering firm look at the ramp space that we have and how we utilize it. We asked them, we thought we could find an additional space, and we did, and they actually found 2 additional spaces. So we're going to realign some of the parking layouts and things like that. It'll be very helpful, especially when JetBlue faces delays in some of their out markets. There have been times when they end up with 4 airplanes on the ground here, and that doesn't work with one gate. So it really creates a logjam in the system. And we're trying to help alleviate some of that.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about, how's the new parking system working?
It's working well. It's fully functional, and just a reminder to folks, if you're coming in and parking for less than 3 hours, you don't have to do anything. You simply park your car, go about your business, come back out, and leave.
So going for breakfast, lunch, or dinner at Crosswinds will still not cost you anything?
Not cost you anything, and not require you to go to any kiosk or anything else. Just simply park the car, go in and have your lunch or breakfast, and come back out if you're under 3 hours. No fare, and you don't have to interact with any machines. If you're going to be beyond 3 hours, there are kiosks located in the parking lot as well as inside the building, and you simply approach the kiosk, touch any button, and it will give you instructions on the screen as to what to do. It'll ask for your space number, so you need to remember the number of the parking space that you're in. And then it'll prompt you for other information, how long you're going to be away, that type of thing. And there is an app. I apologize, I don't know it online, but we do have signs out there for I believe it's Park Mobile app. And so you can sign up for that. You can prepay. You can also have it send you reminders if you're stuck off island, let's say, for an excessive amount of time. It will remind you that time is coming up and ask you if you want to add time to your parking or whatever else too. So,
have you been fining people who have gone over their time?
We had a grace period last year during peak season because we just installed it in a July-August time frame. So we've been somewhat lenient, but we are going to be enforcing violations this year because, again, the word's out, the system's up, it's fully functional, and so if you are violating it, you will be fined accordingly.
That's good. I mean, I guess it's good. It's good from the airport's point of view.
We also reduced the overnight parking from a $20 fare to, I believe, a $10 fare. So, there's a reduction there. We're trying to make it as user-friendly as possible.
Airport has other land that it leases out to people for both aeronautical and non-aeronautical uses, right?
Correct. And we have a number of aeronautical users who have expressed an interest in expanding. We have quite a bit of non-aeronautical land, and we're out again for a request for proposals for some of that out on the Bunker Road site. We just executed a new agreement with a new tenant in that area, and we have a number of other non-aeronautical tenants, but we're required to follow FAA regulations on how we go about leasing that land and what we're allowed to charge for that. We have to do an appraisal, and we cannot accept anything below fair market value.
Which is determined by the appraisal. The
baseline is determined by the appraisal, yes. And it's also part of our grant assurances in order to keep the airport as financially self-sustaining as possible to utilize that land for income for the airport.
And what people don't realize when the airport's doing all right, I guess, is that if it doesn't do all right, the taxpayers have to pick up the bill.
Unfortunately, they had to in the past subsidize the airport, and we're in the process of paying the town back for that. But you're absolutely right. If the airport does not generate enough revenue to support itself, then it becomes a taxpayer burden, and that's one thing we don't want. So.
Right. So when we're trying to explain to people why we charge what we do,
Yes, and we recover a lot of fees on the aeronautical side. And in fact, we recover quite a bit on that, more than I would say is required to provide those services. But the entire airport itself, we need to have other diversified incomes, and that's where we go to the non-aeronautical revenue.
that's right. And you're also, aren't you facing a situation where the possibility of government funding is
Government funding is shrinking by the minute. The state has a tremendous program, but they've seen a dramatic decrease over the past couple of years. The federal government, the federal grants that we receive, the amount of money has shrunk
available.
quite a bit. The availability is shrinking rapidly, and a lot of that has to do with the industry itself. What has happened, as many of us know, the airlines have unbundled their fares, and so you pay a separate fee now for your bags and for your seat and a number of other things. Those fees are no longer taxed. In the past, they were taxed and went into the Transportation Trust Fund that funded the entire system, which was our grants, the FAA Air Traffic Control Tower, the FAA itself. And so that fund is shrinking dramatically. So that's one of the national issues that they're working on, looking at how to fund the national system.
because for any town to take on those obligations
It's a major asset. It's a huge, huge lift. Airports are very heavily capital intensive operations, yes. And we're no exception. Just the runways themselves, the lighting, the marking, the firefighting, the security, the terminal buildings, the various buildings that we have to support. Very, very capital intensive. So, but we're doing okay financially, but our goal is still financial sustainability. We need to establish long term the financial sustainability of the airport, and we're getting there. But again, part of that is using the non-aeronautical land to diversify our revenue.
But isn't that what happens to most of the major airports, that they have substantial non-aeronautical
It is. It absolutely is.
revenue?
And essentially, if you look at it this way, we're providing a public service. I mean, the funds that are or the revenue that's generated from the commercial service operation, the terminal building, don't nearly come in high enough to support that service. It's a service to the public that we're providing, and we need to be able to afford that and make it reasonable.
Yeah, for example, if we didn't have commercial service, we wouldn't have to have a fire department, right?
Yes.
A fire department's expensive.
And you know, if you have a little bit of commercial service, you still have to have that fire fighting. So if you have a little or a lot, you might as well have a lot, get better service, get better amenities and things like that, and provide the customer better opportunities. So we provide year-round firefighting for the airport. We have a full staff that does that, and again, they do a great job too. So
What's the requirement? They have to be out in the
they have to be on
median distance to
the intersection of the two runways within 3 minutes of the alarm going off. So it's very challenging, and it is a different type of firefighting. It's not your normal structural town firefighting. The equipment is different, the procedures are different, everything. It's a unique breed, but we do specialized training. That in itself is very costly. We have to send our entire department off island, fly them off island to what's known as a hot fire, and they have to actually fight a fire at various training pits. One's in Boston, Logan, the other's in New Hampshire. And just that alone is very costly. So
You had a wish list. Yeah, I'm sure you do have a wish list. What's at the top of your wish list?
Improved year-round service with connectivity to the national system is number one. As an island resident, I experience, just like everyone else, trying to get somewhere can be a long duration challenge, and in today's day and age, it shouldn't have to be that way. The airplanes were built for convenience, so if we could establish some additional connectivity that would be more geographically streamlined, I think that would be better. As we all know, right now we have connectivity to Boston in the winter, but again, to go anywhere south in the country, you have to go north. So that's one challenge. That's
the other thing that limits that service, at least according to the airlines, is the pilot shortage.
Absolutely.
I think we need to talk about that a little bit before we go.
It's a major national issue that is facing the entire industry. There was a regulation passed a couple of years ago in response to a crash, where it now requires 1,500 hours of training to be a pilot in command. I believe before that it was 250 hours. It has increased the cost to become a pilot significantly, so it has deterred some students that were considering being pilots, and the ones that are retiring, they're not backfilling as fast.
And there are fewer coming out of the military. Right?
Absolutely. The military is facing a crisis too with regard to pilots. So there's a challenge all the way around in terms of the number of pilots. That's why what we've seen is the airlines upgauging or using larger aircraft. They can use larger aircraft with the same amount of pilots and carry the same or more passengers. However, there's something called scope clauses that the airlines have with their regional carriers that only limit how many of the type of airplane they can fly and so on and so forth. So it's not just here, but it's exacerbated here because of the unique niche of our small community and the small airplanes that they fly. They don't necessarily have the ability to upgauge. You can't go from a 9-seat into a 10 or 15. You essentially have to get up into a 50 or 70 seat, and that's very, very costly.
So there's no immediate solution to that problem.
No, but there's a number of initiatives taking place in Washington, but it is going to be a long term, and my personal prediction is it's going to get worse before it gets better. We have been fortunate enough, though, as I said, to see an increase in improvement in seasonal service. I think that speaks volumes to our market and the strength of the market, and primarily because of the yields in the market and what the return is to the airline. So we're very fortunate as a small community to see the improvements that we're seeing.
Tom Rafter, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And good luck
Thanks.
to you at the airport, and let's keep people flying.
Yeah, we'll try.